Okay, so we're going to learn the third formula for finding the equation of the line, and that's the point-slope formula. And before we write the equation down, you would use this formula when you can find the slope, and you have one point, which we're going to call x1, y1, or x sub 1, y sub 1. So the equation of a line in the form point-slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And I always have my students underline the three values that we're going to be plugging in to this formula, and that's our y sub 1, which is our y value of our point, m, or our slope, and x sub 1, the x value of our point. So when you have the slope or can find the slope and have a point on the line, you can use this equation to find the equation of the line. Just with those three underlined, you're only replacing those three values. The y and the x stay as a y and an x. So let's look at the first example. It says, write an equation for the line that passes through 2, 3, and 5, negative 1. So before we can use that formula, we do need to find the slope. So it's a good review of the slope. M equals the change in y over the change in x. So let's subtract our y values. So I'm going to start with the negative 1 minus 3. Just make sure you put them in the right order, and you're only dealing with the y values right now. Over change in x. Remember, that means change means we're subtracting or finding the difference between the two. So that would be 5 minus 2. Let's go ahead and simplify. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. 5 minus 2 is 3. So our slope is negative 4/3, and I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction like that. It now says use point-slope form. The slope from A and either point to find the equation for this line. So I have my slope, and it doesn't matter what point I pick to plug into the formula. I always just pick the easiest one. Whichever one you'll pick, you'll get the same answer in the end. But I'm just going to pick the 2, 3, only because it doesn't have a negative number in it, and it's just less room to make a mistake. So I'm going to pick 2, 3. But you could pick 5, negative 1 if you wanted. So I'm going to write the formula, even though it's right above me. And I'm just going to underline to remind you we're plugging in just these three values. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing we write is the y, and go ahead and write the minus. That way you're not going to get confused if your y value is negative. You just bring down that minus sign, and now look at what your y sub 1 is. That means what is your y value of your point, and in our case it's the 3. Equals your slope, which is negative 4/3, x minus the x value of your point, which is 2. So x minus 2. And now we just need to simplify, so I need to distribute this negative 4/3 through my parentheses. So I'm going to come over here and do that. And I get y minus 3 equals negative 4/3 x. And then a negative 4/3 times a negative 2 is a positive 8/3. That's an 8/3 there. And then the last step, I want to get this in the form y equals mx plus b, because it just makes it easier to graph. So we're going to add 3 to both sides of our equation, or both sides of our equal sign. Those will go away, and I get y equals negative 4/3 x. Then you need to add 8/3 plus 3, which is 9/3, and you get 17/3. We found the equation of our line, and we have the slope, which we already knew was negative 4/3, and we also have the y-intercept now, which is 17/3.